You can create a graph from the data in your Excel spreadsheet several different ways. I'm going to show you two. The first is plotting one set of data, one x and one y coordinate in a pair. I'm going to use run 1, the temperature data, along with the time. Now, to start creating your graph, simply highlight both the time and the temperature information from run 1. So I'm going to click and drag to include the first two columns, time and temperature from run 1. Now, to create the actual graph, click on the Insert tab at the top, and then go to the chart area. Now, your first inclination might be to use a line graph. The line graph will give you a skewed visual of your data. Don't use it. Instead, use the scatter plot. Click the downward arrow under the scatter plot to look at your various options to choose from. I want you to select Scatter with Smooth Lines, the third option in the group. When I click the button, my chart is produced in my spreadsheet. I'm going to move it a little bit so we can get a little more information, a little bit easier to view. So I'm going to resize it, and there's my chart. Now, as long as the chart is actually highlighted, you'll see the Chart Tools area, which has the Design, Layout, and Format buttons. Go to the Design area. We want to make sure that we have both a title as well as having our axes labeled, and as you notice, both the temperature and the time axis have no labels. So as long as the table is selected, as long as the chart is selected and you're in the Design area, go to the Chart Layouts section. There's a couple of them to choose from. I'd recommend defaulting to Layout 1, the one in the upper left-hand corner. I select it, and as you notice now, both my vertical and my horizontal axes have a generic axis title. To edit either those axis titles or the title of the chart, click slowly twice on either the axis titles or the title of the chart. I click once and twice. You'll know that you're ready to edit because the cursor will be blinking in the chart title. I can highlight the chart title and delete the current text and enter the title for this graph, which is HCl and sodium hydroxide neutralization. Click anywhere outside of the chart title to get the editing function to stop. As you can see, we now have HCl and NaOH neutralization as our title. You can repeat this process to add titles to both your y and x coordinates. Click once, twice, and the title for this axis will be temperature. Don't forget your units, in this case degrees Celsius. And then finally, we're going to change the horizontal title to time with seconds as our unit. That's one way to create a graph with only one set of data. But for this particular experiment, the first three runs, 1, 2, and 3, are all from the same experiment. You can plot all of the runs from a given experiment from the lab on one graph. So I'm going to add more data to this graph. But if you've already formatted the graph with the titles and you don't want to delete it to start again, right-click on the center of the plot area. After you right-click, a menu will open, and you want to add more data or select data. If you click the Select Data option, this dialog will open. Now, for those of you that have never used Excel, this might look a little intimidating, but don't worry, it'll be okay. I want to add runs 2 and 3 to my graph. Click the Add button under Legend Entries. The window that opens is going to ask you, what data do you want to add? We want to add run number 2 next. So I enter run 2 as the series title. And then for the series X values, I'm going to click this little button at the end of the row and select the first column because all of my times are the same, from 0 to 360 seconds. Once I've highlighted that data, you can hit the Enter key on your keyboard. And you can see that we are now using column A2 to A74 over here as my X values. The Y values are going to be the temperature values from run number 2. Now, I'm going to delete the equals bracket 1 bracket defaulted into the series Y values, and then click the little box at the end of the row as we did for the X values, and select the temperature values in run 2. Clicking and dragging, clicking and dragging. So we're going from 74, again back up to 2 in column C, C2 to C74, and hit Enter on your keyboard. As you can see, run 2 has already been added to our graph. Now, to complete the process, click OK in the dialog box. And now we have runs 1 and run 2. You can add run 3 by performing the same tasks as we did to add run 2. I've completed the process by adding all the runs 1 through 3 to my graph. As you can see, they're all here at the top. But if you notice, all of our information is up here above the 20 mark, and there's no information below that. So we have all this extra white space, and we're squeezing all of our information up top. This isn't a good way to make a graph. We want to zoom in on the information. So I wanted the graph to start on the y-axis at 20 degrees, and we can let it still finish at 30. To edit the axis, hover over one of the numbers on the axis and right-click. When you right-click, you'll get a dialog box, and we're going to select Format Axis at the bottom of the menu. The dialog box opens and asks us to first use our axis options. Again, we want to change our axis to go from 20 up to 30. The minimum is currently on auto and bottoming out at 0. Change it from auto to fixed, and change the 0 value that's in the entry to 20. And again, we're going to let the maximum top out at 30. Click Close, and when you click Close, the graph changes from going from 0 to 30, now going from 0 to, 29. Since we left the upper limit of the graph set to auto, Excel is going to default to what it thinks is best. If you want to change it to go back to 30, right-click on the axis and change your options. The other thing we might want to change is, on the lower portion of the graph on the time axis, it's going out to 400 seconds, which we stopped at 360, and it's going every 50 seconds as opposed to every 60 seconds. Let's change that. Right-click on any of the number values in the horizontal axis and format the axis. Our minimum value will be left at 0. In fact, we can fix it at 0. And we're going to go to a maximum value of 360 seconds. We want our major unit, instead of every 50, to be every 60. All the other values we can leave alone, and click Closed. So now our information is going from 0 to 360 seconds with 1-minute intervals. This is how you can create a graph by adding data one at a time. But instead of doing this one at a time, let's do it all at once.